Welcome to the 7-8 podcast,
where falling down isn't failure,
and getting back up is the secret to life.
Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the 7-8 podcast. I am Lexi Rafael, and I am here with Michael Johnson.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show.
We are happy to have you, and today we are going to be talking about something that Michael and I were discussing the other day, and I felt like it was going to be a good topic for the podcast. There were a lot of things that made an impact on me, and it comes from Michael's brain and things that he thinks about, and it made a huge impact on me. And so we wanted to share and have a conversation about it, and we hope that it will help you too.
Absolutely. So here it is. We throw around this word matter all the time. What's the matter? This really matters to me. But what if that word holds more weight than you think? What if it's the secret to how we bring our dreams to life? Well, that's kind of the premise and the basis of what we're going to talk about today. First, quick word from our sponsor, and then we're going to dig into the guts of it all.
This episode is brought to you by the Business Choreography System, the system for building your business after the fall. If you've tried the coaches, the courses, the templates, and you're still not where you want to be, this isn't about starting over. It's about choreographing your rise. We help experts, educators, and creatives finally bring all the moving parts together so they can grow with confidence, not chaos. Watch the free Business Choreography Masterclass and see the full system at createmyimpact.com. You've gotten back up. Now let's build what lasts.
Okay, we're back. And we're going to dig into what really matters. So this is fun. I love linguistics. I fell in love with it. In fact, if I would have known in college that linguistics was something I could major in, which I didn't know. I know there's tons of majors though. If I could have known that when I was in college, I probably would have gone on to study linguistics and played with that. As it stands, after college, while I was in my professional ballroom dancing days on the circuit, I started getting into how the mind works with the help of learning NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. And it was founded by a guy named Richard Bandler and John Grinder, two very interesting fellows, very colorful.
They are.
And that's where it was kind of brought into existence and given a name. Anyway, well into my career, I started realizing there was something wrong with my brain. Okay, at least I thought that there was something wrong with me because I was a winner. I had won. I was on the top of the heap as an amateur. And as an amateur, you know, I was winning. I was living the good life, right? Everything was kind of working and clicking. And then I turned pro, and it was just like I ran face first into a wave that was bigger than me. And it just stopped me in my tracks. And for the first, couple years or so, maybe even 3, we did so poorly. At least in hindsight, I can say it different. But during the time, we thought we were so bad. We weren't making finals, and I was used to winning. We weren't progressing. At least I thought we weren't, right? We just weren't going anywhere. And so I took on this challenge of figuring out what was wrong with me. Oh my goodness. How many of you have been on that quest? What's wrong with me?
I've been there.
And so then I started learning NLP because I had to figure out what was going on with all the chatter that doesn't matter in between my ears. And I started learning about linguistics. So this play on the word matter starts with the definition of matter. So I want to start with that, and then we're going to talk about the play on words, because this will set everything up for what Lexi and I were having a very philosophical discussion the other day. You'll get used to that if you hang out with me a little longer. Um,
He has a shirt
I
that his daughter made,
oh, yeah, it's awesome.
because he always will say when he, like, is messing up, he's like, "First I can't even say it. Say it again. Yeah, that's it.
My
And he
kids
has
can
a
all say
shirt
it.
that has that on it, right? Isn't it a shirt?
Yeah, my
Yeah.
youngest daughter made me a shirt, and she spelled it all out and decorated it. It's pretty funny. Okay, so that was a nice little side quest. But
Sorry.
let's talk about the actual definition of matter, but we're gonna take it from a scientific approach. Matter is a physical substance that occupies space and has mass. It is, I'm gonna put in quotes, real. It exists. Okay, now I know we can go down a couple of weird paths talking about real and it exists. So, but that's the actual definition, right? And what we want to do is we want to tie it to the idea of what is real in our lives, what takes up space in our mental and emotional physical world. And that's what we want to start to discuss today. And so I know that when I was first bringing this up and letting Lexi inside my brain for a little bit the other day, she's like, "What is happening? What's going on in there?" I was like, "Be careful what you ask for." So we started talking about these phrases that we use, right? These linguistic phrases that we use as humans, and I think all of us use them. And one of them or some of them are, "What's the matter? This matters to me. It's a matter of fact. Let's get to the heart of the matter. This is a grave matter. Mind over
No
matter."
matter.
Right? So here's the thing. What if in our language we have been talking about this word, right? And the word in its definition from physics standpoint is that it is tangible, it's real, it has mass, it has something that is tangible and exists, you can hold on to, it's crunchy, as we like to say, and when we have our marketing hat on, it's crunchy, right? And what if that when we're using it linguistically, we're forgetting that the word means that it has mass and that it's crunchy, that it's tangible? What if we can go back to the language that we use, all those cool statements, and say, okay, that actually is mass. Let's think of it of as mass, as an actual tangible item. Okay. So what would that do to you, Lex, if
Yeah,
said, if I said, what's the matter? And you took that in its actual
like
definition.
what, right.
What's the matter?
Well, so if we're saying that it's like, I think weight right away, so when I think of matter, I think of something that has weight.
Sure.
Um, so what's the matter? I think of, um, man, it messes
It's
with your
heavy. It
brain.
really is.
What
Literally,
did you
I said it's heavy because you
Yeah,
said
it
it's
literally is.
weight,
I think
right?
it's heavy, like, "What's the matter?" Well, it yeah, that kinda
Let's talk
messes
about
with your
what it typically means when you're talking with your girlfriend or your best bud, and you're out and you're looking a little down and they notice something's wrong and they ask you,
"What's the
"What's the
matter?"
matter?" And so what do we take on as the response? I think what a lot of people take on as the response is the emotional side of the question, "What's the matter?" And the interesting thing is that there may be some matter in it. There may be something that exists in what is bringing you down. But a very interesting turn of events happens when you start to realize that it's emotional, oftentimes, and even story that you have created in your head that you are giving weight to.
Yeah, I think
So,
that's the thing that really, like, that's what hit me is when you talk about it in that way, that you are giving weight to something. So somebody says, "What's the matter?" And now you tell them that, "Oh, I had this happen in my day," or "I'm not feeling good," or "This thing happened." Well, now when you think about it in the scientific way, then that means that you are giving weight to that thing and you are making it heavy in your brain. And so, okay, what's the matter? Well, I failed a test. Okay, well, I am giving weight and I'm giving heaviness to this. And some people wouldn't. And so they wouldn't have any problem with it. And somebody probably wouldn't say, "What's the matter?" because they wouldn't see that something is wrong because you didn't give it any weight.
Oh yeah,
Did
totally.
that all make
Yeah.
sense? It's a little philosophical, but
Well, and here's the interesting part about that statement. What's the matter? I can see right now how in our current um paradigm that our society, human society, lives in this day and age where the world has shrunk. People say, "What's the matter?" And there's already a negative connotation to the question. But I can imagine whether it's true or not. I don't know. Maybe somebody out there that's a historical linguist could maybe confirm or deny this. If you are that, please put it in the comments or something and let us know what you know about it. But I could see potentially how there might have been a time in our history where people said, "What's the matter?" Meaning in a positive direction. Tell me
Mhm.
what's real about what's going on. What's what's the matter? Not negative, but right now in our paradigm, when
We've
somebody
made
asks
it negative.
you what's the matter, we automatically go into negative mode because and we say nothing's the matter
Nothing's
or
wrong.
nothing's wrong, or we automatically go, well, what's wrong? And so we look for what's wrong, or maybe there's a feeling or emotional state and you go, oh, why do I look like there's something the matter? Do I? And they go, well, you have this look on your face. Well, that's not matter. Okay, so now we're getting into it, right? Now the linguistic side of it
Yeah.
is coming out, and I love thinking about this because you can actually induce this in somebody. And maybe you've had this experience if you have a significant other, if you have children, if you have any sort of significant work relationship with anybody that you work with, and you walk in and you presume to think something is wrong. And you say to them, hey man, what's the matter? And they're like, nothing's the matter. Wait, why did you think something was the matter? And it can
Right.
all of a sudden create matter out of nothing because you started asking just out of concern, right? What's the matter? And they now are like, oh, wait, is there something the matter? I got to identify if there's something the
And you
matter.
start looking and
So you
thinking
start
about
looking,
all the things.
right? So the other side of it, you said wait, right? But
Yeah.
I also want to point out that it's if we're talking about matter as being tangible, yes, of course, that has weight, mass, right? But that tangibility starts to get created. Now, I want to go on a quick little side quest.
Side
One
quest.
of one of my favorite sayings from ages ago is what you focus on, you get. And
Right.
that has a tangible side of it. You have heard, all of you guys have probably heard, if you're listening to this podcast, I'd be surprised if you hadn't, that when you want something, when you have a goal that you've set, oftentimes one of the best things to do, and one of the probably most suggested things to do, is write it down. Well, why would you do that? Well, because it's a thought that you thought in your head, and then you took something tangible and you wrote it on something tangible. And now all of a sudden it's crunchy. You can hear the crunchy. Right? Sorry about that for those of you listening to us in your ear, in your headphones. But the idea of writing a goal down is because it's a very quick and fast way to start turning it tangible, actually turning the thought into matter and actually focusing on a thing to make it come to life and turn into mass and matter. And when you do that, it starts to also matter, which is a funny way of saying it. Hey, this is starting to really matter. Like,
D Doesn't it matter the minute you think it, though?
well, I think that's an interesting thing because I have this other theory behind that thought process. I think there's something different when you write it down compared to when you think it. And I almost have to be thankful for that. I actually am pretty thankful because if I think it would be fun to have a pink elephant in my basement right now. Oh, man, it's a good thing that when I think that, it doesn't instantly turn to matter.
Mm,
Because I think we are powerful. We are creators. I think all of us are creators, and probably a majority of you listening to this have maybe started to realize. And if you haven't, hopefully hanging out with us a little bit, you'll start to realize that you are creators of things. You're creators of lots of things. Maybe you have a business, maybe you're starting a business, maybe you have children, you created them, and we created lots of things. We've all created things, and oftentimes we can create things from our thoughts, but usually they have to turn into words and or written down or put it on paper, and all of a sudden it then starts to come to life and we start to make it matter.
yeah.
And that's an interesting thing, right? Like we're making it matter. When you have an argument with your best friend and it's something that you go back and you look at after you've been in the argument for 20 minutes and you're like, wait, why does this even matter?
Matter.
And then you go,
It
and then
matters
you,
because you started talking about it.
right. It
It
matters because you
matters,
gave it energy,
right?
because you talking about it made it more real. It matters. Sometimes you make it matter by speaking it and talking about it and giving it energy. And then maybe an hour later, maybe 2 hours, maybe a day later, after you've gone down this rabbit hole, you realize it
It
isn't,
doesn't
it
matter.
doesn't matter, and it isn't matter in our language currently.
Right.
And that kind of changes things, right? A lot of times in helping couples work through their issues, a lot of things that they have issues about, I'm not going to say, I'm going to say they don't matter because they aren't matter, but they created them into matter. And by
Mhm.
continuing to speak about them, they make it matter. And sometimes you get some people that really love to journal. They write it down, and oh my gosh, then it really
Really matters.
matters because they wrote down the problem. And now you're thinking to me, but Michael, should I not write down my stuff in my journal? I hear it's therapy and it works. What do you think about that, Lex?
Um, well, I have been one that likes to I'm not like a huge journaler, but I do like to write things down to process and to understand um, how I'm feeling and to get it out onto paper. Whether you should or you shouldn't, that is a great question. Not for anybody but yourself to decide. Um, I think you have to decide whether you're going to do anything
Well, it's
with
such a
it.
touchy subject, right? Because age
Yeah,
old wisdom says that if you have a goal, one of the first things you should do is write down that goal.
right. But you don't want to necessarily write down your problems because wouldn't then it makes it
Well, that's the question, right?
matter. That's the question at hand.
Does it make it matter, or does it allow it to get out of your head so that it doesn't matter anymore? But then if that's the case, then we're talking about matter as being tangible and mass, and we're
Right.
also talking about matter being emotional and a thought process, maybe a belief in your head. that
Right.
hasn't gotten out of your head.
Right. Yeah, that gets crazy. That's good. I don't know. Should journal, should not, I don't know.
I think our language suggests that we sense that matter isn't physical. But I think what I'm maybe alluding to and suggesting today is, could it help you if you were to start to catch yourself in your language when you use the word matter, to start to give it a physical sense instead of allowing it to just be not physical? Let it just be
Right.
emotional in your head, because matter is in essence a sense of meaning, right? The word matter has meaning attached to it.
Right.
So if you and your sister were to get in an argument and you walked in the room and I said, okay, so what's the matter with you and your sister? And now you look at it from a tangible perspective. Could you address that faster? I actually think that that may be possible, to maybe address it a little faster, or be able to say, okay, what's a solution for maybe the challenge that you're going through, because you're looking at it in terms of what's actually tangible matter in this, and what's a made up construct in my head, and it's the story that I'm telling which is giving it weight.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really cool way to think of it and to decide whether you should write it down or not. Because if you start writing it down, then it allows you to see what actually is matter, right? And what isn't, and what you may be telling or creating the story about, and what is actually real and what is actually matter. And you can start to separate those things and come up with a solution and get past that moment faster.
I think this is really cool, a really cool topic. And as you guys explore it in your mind and you're thinking about it as we're talking about it, you've had some ideas, which we'd love to hear about. Put them, wherever you can write comments, wherever you're listening to this or watching it. And I think it's interesting because the ideas that you give attention to are powerful. And I think that the power behind the energy of those ideas increases the more you deal with them. Now, here's an interesting idea. If you write down a problem or a challenge, there's there's a thin red line there, right? That we're making that problem and challenge more tangible, more crunchy, just like we hope that when we write down a goal, it's getting more tangible and more crunchy. However,
Right.
what if you write it down? So you get your paper out and you write it down there, and then you take that paper and you go,
If
and then you throw it away.
you're not watching, Michael crumpled it up, crumpled the so he wrote down and then he crumpled up the paper.
So what does that do to the representation in our head? Because we wrote it down and then we said, okay, I'm not letting that matter.
Right.
Right. And there's an interesting concept or an interesting idea. And I've actually been through some exercises with some different trainers that we've done stuff like that. And I've seen it have powerful impacts on other people,
Right.
where they are like, okay, I'm going to write down all these things and I'm never going to do them again. This is a never again moment.
Right.
And then they keep it in their journal so that they can see it all the time. And it's like, wait a second, but you're giving more energy to that matter. I've also seen it
Right.
where it's like, okay, I'm going to crumple it up and throw it away. And now what does that do? I think it's interesting to start to look at it from that, what you focus on, you get. I think focus is also filling. I think that's true too, because you
Right.
can have one of and I'm glad I remember to talk about this today, because one of the interesting thing about successful entrepreneurs and successful athletes is that there's a certain level of delusional that they all are.
Yeah.
I think you've experienced that along the way, right?
Me specifically?
Yeah. I don't know where
Yes.
you might have experienced that, but um, but that delusion is that they are the best, that they can win, that they have a shot. And it's very interesting to listen to athletes. Sometimes they mic them up, and there's an athlete in a basketball game and they're like 20 behind, and he's mic'd up and he's talking to the guys. And as you listen to them talk to their guys, their teammates, they're like ridiculously delusional, right? Like, as an audience, and we're looking on from the outside in, and we're going, yeah, you can't win this game. Like, what are you doing? And then they come back and they win, and you think, oh, well, okay. So you were completely and utterly delusional, but you decided what mattered, and then you made it matter,
Matter.
and it came to life, which is an interesting thing, because now I think that that alludes to belief, right? There's this like weird connection to belief, and your belief now has an effect on what matters.
Right.
And I've seen that over and over again. I mean, I have so many stories about that happening, that a belief got turned to
Matter.
into the thing that mattered more than everything else,
Right.
which is, I think that's really, really interesting. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. You listening right now, what are your thoughts about the power of matter? Now, I know there's some really astute people listening, because we've heard from you guys. We've heard some really great comments and suggestions that we've gotten back from you guys. And I'm curious what your thoughts are about matter. When is it the right time to write it down? When is it not good to speak it out loud? When is it imperative that you speak it out loud? Because those things all make it into matter, right? Which is kind of interesting, right? If you think about noise and sound, and the fact that right now in the world, wherever you are at, you can you can hold up your phone and you can get TV from anywhere around the world. Right now, where you stand, right now, I can pull up a channel and watch a live sports game of some sort on my phone that's happening somewhere in the world, which means it's right now happening in the air. It's right
Crazy.
here, right now. What? So is it matter? Well, on the other end, it's matter. Is it matter in the air that I'm connecting this phone to? And if I'm connecting the phone to it, can I connect my brain to it too? What the? Okay, so I know
We got deep.
that's a little deep. Now, for those of you that are astute, let me challenge you once again, because for those of you that are astute, you might have thought to yourself, Michael, Lex, I love the idea of 7-8. What in the world does this have to do with falling down 7 and getting up 8? And I asked myself that too before we decided to turn this into a podcast and put it on the 7-8 show. And part of the reason that I thought, yeah, this would be really cool for us to discuss and for you guys to start to discuss in your own head, is because we talk about these 7, 8 stories. We've shared with you some of ours. If you haven't listened to those, there's a number of different episodes throughout where Lexi shares some of her stuff and I share some of my stuff, and we
Yep.
share some of those stories. But what we've done is we've taken some of those 7 stories and we've turned them into what matters. We've used hindsight to look at them and say what matters is the 8. What matters is that I got up 8
Right.
times after falling 7. And the 8 is so powerful, I think, because it represents infinity. It represents that it doesn't matter how many times you fall down. Did you hear me? I said it doesn't matter. And now think about that again. If it's mass, it doesn't mass.
Yes.
If you change that word, it doesn't heavy. It doesn't real how many times you fell down. But what does matter is that you keep getting up every time. Infinity, 8. That matters. And so as we continue down this path of this really cool concept and this really fun topic, I want to maybe ask you, has it started to turn into a belief system for you? Because for me, it has. For me, it has started to develop into a philosophy, a belief system. And what matters isn't the 7. That has double, maybe triple meaning right there. What matters is the 8. And together, the combination of that 7, 8 is that I'm going to get up. Now, does that mean that I have all the strength to do it myself? Maybe not. We know there's power in numbers. See what I did there? And
Clever.
that that also means that we are stronger together in a lot of cases. And in a lot of 8 stories and a lot of 7, 8 stories, what mattered was that they reached out and they got the help they needed. They listened to something which gave them the help they needed. They turned something into matter that helped them get out and make the choice. Something happened that mattered to them on a different level than anything that had happened to them before, and that helped them get back up. I hear so many people talk about resilience. And in essence, the 7, 8 philosophy is so much about resilience. And the resilience is getting back up again, and that matters. And so I wanted to really make sure we dug into this and really hammered it home what matter is and what matters to you and what doesn't matter, what's not allowed to matter anymore. You may have fallen down and it may feel perpetual. It may feel like you're falling down is the 8. Like I just keep falling down over and over again. But don't let the fall matter. Let the 8 matter. The getting back up has to matter more than the falling down. That's why we believe and thought that, hey, this is an important topic. This is important conversation to bring into the 7, 8 podcast because, yes, while we do want to tell 7, 8 stories, we want to make sure that we're also giving you guys some thing that matters, something you can turn into matter.
Yeah, we got a comment from somebody that said, "I was looking forward to hearing about the how and the 7-8 way of getting back up, because there's lots of different ways that you can look at it, to be resilient and to get back up. And they specifically said, I was looking forward to the 7-8 way, and in this episode I heard that, and so it was super helpful. And in seeing that, it reminded me that it's important that we have some of these conversations about the ways that we believe you can get back up, and have some philosophical conversations, because one of the ways is going to help you. One of the ways is going to be the thing that you need to hear on your journey. And there's lots and lots of ways out there to be resilient and to stay strong and to keep going after your dreams. And we also have our thoughts and the things that we think about. And so I guess this is one of our 7-8 ways is talking about matter and what you focus on, you get.
Absolutely. If you're really serious about creating this new story, a new story for yourself, you've got to start by listening to what you let matter.
Right.
Because again, like Lexi just said, what you focus on will begin to take form. And it's how we move towards goals. It's how we move towards those lighthouses, is like I like to think of them as a lighthouse. It's where I'm headed right now.
Yeah.
And it's where your next chapter begins. It's where the 8 begins. It's where you've gotten back up, but what next? Now we have to decide what matters. And I believe that the 7-8 brand and the 7-8 philosophy that we're talking about here is always looking at how belief is going to shape behavior and how stories are going to shape your identity. But that's the thing, right? Belief doesn't have to just live in your head. It has to live in your words, in the habits that you have, in your focus. Like we said, what you focus on, you get. And that's why matter is both the physical kind of matter that we talked about earlier, and it's the emotional kind. It's the stuff that's in your heart and energy that's inside of you. And both, I think, deserve attention, because if you want a new life, if you want to write that new 8 story, the not just the 7 story that might be happening to you over and over again, if you want to have that new life, you have to start by shifting what you let matter.
Indeed.
And that has so many ways to think about it. What you let matter. I You have any other closing remarks, Lexi? I mean, clearly you can see I've thought about this a lot, and I'm passionate about it, and I think just that little shift makes such a difference in your language. But I'd love for you guys to let us know, like, did you notice that you were thinking that, or that what did you notice what you were thinking matters? What are your thoughts on that before we head out?
Yeah, I think I noticed when we first were having this conversation is that I was giving, and still do, I'm working on it, but giving weight and giving attention to things that I don't need to, and I'm making them matter because I'm giving those things attention. And so I think that's kind of my biggest takeaway. I think there's lots of takeaways that you can have from this conversation, but for me it is that I am making more things matter than I need to. And if I just stop thinking about it, then it no longer matters and it no longer is a thing. And I think that's the key, is that when we get stressed and we get fearful and we feel the negative or the dark emotions, as Michael and I like to talk about, it's because um, we are giving giving things that negative attention. So those are my thoughts.
I love that. Guys, as usual, we appreciate you so much. Thanks for coming and listening to the 7-8 podcast. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So on anything in this episode, please write them in the comments and share this with somebody that would need to hear 7-8 and start to hear these conversations about getting back up. And it's okay to fall down, and it's okay to have those. Those are part of the experience. And just share it with some people that need it and help spread the word. That lets us know to keep creating more content around the philosophy and around the concept. And we're thankful you guys are here. Until next time, keep getting back up. 7-8. We'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Bye. This episode is brought to you by the Business Choreography System, the system for building your business after the fall. If you've tried the coaches, the courses, the templates, and you're still not where you want to be, this isn't about starting over. It's about choreographing your rise. We help experts, educators, and creatives finally bring all the moving parts together so they can grow with confidence, not chaos. Watch the free Business Choreography Masterclass and see the full system at createmyimpact.com. You've gotten back up. Now let's build what lasts.